Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Come on in. The water's fine. Come on in. Hi, everybody. Hi. Hi, everybody. Hello. How are you? How are you? A little bit early, but that's okay because at 2:30, Pete Kegsbreath, the alcoholic secretary of Warcrimes, I think he's going to be testifying in front of the House, or is it in front of the Senate? Let's find out. Hegseth. Testifies. No notification again? Yeah, that's what happens. Yeah, that's what happens, you know? That's what happens when you're a dissident of the Fuhrer. Chris, I love my best friend, but I don't want to ruin the friendship. Stop loving your best friend? I don't know. I've never had to deal with that. You should ruin that friendship, bro. You should ruin that friendship. You know, you should be like, I have a crush on somebody. And then they'll be like, who? And you go, you know them really well. You should do it. You should do it. You know, ain't no time like the present. Tomorrow ain't guaranteed. We're all gonna fucking die, so why not? 1 year. Oh, congratulations. 1 year you've been giving money to some greasy Italian man on the internet. Thank you very much, Kittensworth. I mean, isn't it crazy how it's been like a year or almost like a little bit more than a year that we've been in the mish, quitting my job next week, hopefully, if I get this new job. Goodbye, capitalist pig who was once my boss. Hell yeah. It is remarkable that, like, you know, you guys, you were here the whole first year. You know, we don't like, I have had a YouTube channel for 9 years, but I only really started doing the hardcore politics stuff once Donnie Diddle's kids won his re-election. And, you know, in 5-10 years, you guys are going to look back and be like, I was there in the beginning when he was in that shitty fucking apartment. I was there. You know, it's great. It's great. You know, I'm so grateful for all of yous. You know, without you guys, we wouldn't be able to do this. We wouldn't have the OAL operation. I think that we've done some good work in 1 year. Some good work. Average, or not average, but totaled over 1.2 billion views across platforms in the Valenti videos, the Valenti Media Archive. Can you believe that? Over 1.2 billion views with the fucking B. Yeah, dude, I'm dead ass. 1.2 billion fucking views across the board. More views than CNN has. Tell you that. Tell you that. You guys remember when we were fighting for frames? Do you guys remember when we were fighting for frames? Give me back my fucking frames, you son of a bitch. You guys remember when I was operating off of a laptop? Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Luigi's on the ground. I feel bad about picking her up and moving her onto the couch so that she's on frame. So I think I just won't do that. You know what I'm saying? I think I just won't do that because that's kind of fucked up. She's sleeping in her bed right there. I put her bed on the couch and then she uses her nose and she hits it clean off. And I'm like, what am I going to do? Put it up? Put it up there? That's diabolical. And you still haven't gotten a new chair? You're damn right. You're damn right. You're damn right I haven't. Can we go back to fighting for frames for old time's sake? Yeah, I mean, like, if I filmed this shit in 8K, yeah, we'd be fighting for frames. But then you would literally see the hair follicles growing, you know? Yeah, and plus, now this chair is seasoned. It's seasoned kind of like a cast iron skillet. It's got the stink of my ass on the cush, you know? If I do get a new chair, I should probably auction off this cushion, right? If I get a new chair, should I auction off this cushion? Let you guys buy my farts? I feel like that would sell. Right? That would definitely sell. Seasoned is the right word. I know what I'm doing. It makes you our short king every day. Well, dude, you know what's weird is the chair doesn't always sink. I don't know what it is. I think it's like, you know, there's like 6 legs. And I think that depending on the orientation of the legs, it'll start sinking. Oh, I saw The Odyssey last night. 9 out of 10. 9 out of 10 flick, you know. And the thing about the Odyssey is I can absolutely talk about the movie if like you can't spoil the Odyssey. You know what I'm saying? I can't spoil it for you. If me telling you about the Odyssey is spoiling it for you, I regret to inform you that you had 3,000 years to read the story. So I'm gonna be spoiling it. It was so fucking good, dude. Dude, you know how refreshing it was for the like the practical effects rather than like a fuckload of CGI. I mean, like even the Cyclops, right? That was a dude. They just used different camera angles and they gave him like toy people to like eat on, and they used different camera angles. It was incredible. Same thing with the giants, you know? It's not like they like CGI giants. They were using camera angles and practical effects to make these guys look fucking massive. Even the scene where they're like transforming men into pigs and then pigs back into men was like incredible. 100% practical effects. It's so impressive. It's so impressive. Nolan has made 3 movies considered among the best ever. 6 out of 10 is crazy. I said 9 out of 10. I said 9 out of 10. But yeah, it was really refreshing. It was great to watch. I loved it. It was deafeningly loud. Excuse me. An unbelievably loud flick. Tell you that. Like, I will say that the reason why I'm not giving it a 10 out of 10 is I did think that the pacing was a little bit fast. I don't know how many of you seen it, but the pacing was a little bit fast. It seemed like, you know, why does it fucking do that? Why does it fucking do that? Why does it fucking do that? The pacing was very fast, but I feel like that's expected considering how long the Odyssey is. How is it fast? Well, I mean, if you see it, you'll see that, like, there's scenes where it'll be like, all right, we're on this island. Everybody go look for food. And then immediate cut. There's no, and it's like, oh, it's been 5 months, bro. We've been on this island for 5 months, dog. And, like, I get it. You're not going to make me sit through 5 months of footage. But there, I don't know. It felt a little bit fast. You know? Yeah, the sirens were too quick. Yeah, that's another one of my examples. So they skipped over the sirens real quick. I feel like the scene with Scylla, you know, where you had to choose between Charybdis or Scylla, I felt like that was rushed too. I wanted to see a little bit more of Scylla. Granted, if you're not going to be using CGI, it's going to be really hard to show us Scylla, but they did a great job. Thing was disgusting and horrifying, but it was only on camera for 10 seconds. It was only on camera for 10 seconds. Oh, the director's cut should be awesome. Yeah, no, good point. The sound design was a little bit too loud. It was a little bit too loud. Like during that hurricane scene, you know, when the ship gets split in two, it was very hard to understand what anybody was saying. But that also might have been the point. I couldn't understand a fucking word anybody was saying. But again, that might have been the point, was that like the fucking thunder and the lightning and the storm was just so deafening that nobody could even hear each other 2 feet away from them. I'll tell you this much, it was louder than, what was that recent movie? Warfare or whatever? The one with, the little shit who plays the golden guy from Marvel? Adam, whatever, I don't know. But it was loud as a motherfucker. It was so loud that there was a group of like high school little shitbags who were like shooting the shit and talking the whole movie. Couldn't even hear them. I seen them, you know, throwing stuff at each other. Warlock, yeah. Adam Warcock. Are you going to cover the Pete Hegseth hearing? Yes, which is why we should probably just start recording. Because I wanna watch that, and that starts at 2:30, so we ought to just bang out the stuff that I've got for you guys queued up, and then I want to watch that. Is that cool? You dig? You dig? Y'all ready to kirk in? I misspelled massive in the title. No shot. Did I really? I did. I did. Fixed it. Thank you. Much appreciate. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Much appreciate. I have fixed it. We are Charlie Kirk. How about a little bit of a Bella Ciao before we actually dive into the shit? Here we go. Una mattina mi sono alzato, oh bello ciao, bello ciao, bello ciao, ciao, ciao. Una mattina mi sono alzato e ho trovato l'invasor, oh partigiano, portami via, oh bello ciao, bello ciao, bello ciao, 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 partigiano, portami via, che mi sento di morire. Yeah. Yeah. And lick the stream. By the way, before we even get started, if you're here live, thank you very much. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. It costs you nothing, helps me immensely. And now, ladies, gentlemen, and non-binary folk, shall we... Oh, wait. Is Big Daddy Nelson here? Big Daddy Nelson. Big Daddy Nelson. Big Daddy Nelsishimo. Big Papa Nelsie. I don't think Nelsie's here. I don't think Nelson's here. He's bussy. He's bussy. No, it's fine. I was just gonna give him the screenshot of me for the video, for the thumbnail, but when he comes back, we'll do it. It's no big deal. We got time. All right. Are you ready to rumble? Here we go, folks. Here we go, folks. Here we go, here we go, here we go, folks. The United States government is covering up the real number of U.S. casualties in Operation Epstein's Fury. Yeah. Yeah. No, I told you. I've been saying this shit for fucking months, and now we got fucking New York Times articles about it, and you have you have the entire, like, Department of War fucking coping, molding, and seething on Twitter going, no, that's not true. We actually are not obligated to report the amount of casualties, so technically it's not a cover-up. Technically it's exactly what we're allowed to be doing. Brother, there are military families across this nation who have not heard from their son or daughter in fucking months, and now we're finding out that you have been withholding the number of casualties from the American public. Do you understand what that does to a mother? Do you understand what that does, dude? I know there's plenty of moms and dads in the chat, but, like, you gotta be out of your fucking mind to think that that is a tolerable or I don't even know the word really because I'm having a brain fart. If you think that is acceptable in any way, shape, or form as a official within the United States military, brother, you belong beneath the fucking prison. So we're gonna be talking about that. We're also going to be showing you some footage of Trump being interviewed in the White House while he's meeting with the president of Lebanon. And, you know, he's getting real pissed off when the journalists say, like, oh, sir, there are no signs that Iran intends on stopping the fight. So what's the plan? And he goes, how do you know that? Do you know something I don't know? Are you in the briefing room? You don't know anything. You're fake news. So, yeah, we're going to be talking about that. And then a quick update on the Houthi blockade of Saudi Arabian oil flow through the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, which is the gateway into the Red Sea. I made a couple of videos over the past, like 7 or 8 days talking about this, and shit is getting real. So, might as well dive in. Before we do, hi, how are you? I'm Chris Valenti. Welcome to the Valenti VOD. This is real independent media, okay? I only make money through grassroots donations from my viewers, like, you know, these people up here. Thank you very much. I've never had a conversation with an advertiser, a sponsor, a billionaire, a government, a PAC, or any of that jazz. So if you want to help me out financially, if you want to help boost independent media voices that you can genuinely trust, there's a couple of ways you could do it. For free, you can like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and share this video with your group chat of dumb fuck idiots. idiots, okay? That goes an incredibly long way. It helps defeat this basilisk of an algorithm that wants to punish any and all dissidents of the regime. And then if you want to help me out financially, if you want to help, the OAL media operation grow, OAL is the only Americans left, there's a couple of ways you could do it. You could buy merch. We got posters, we got hoodies, we got mugs, we got all that jazz located down below. You can click the thanks button down below to tip me directly. You can click the join button down below to become a member of the channel for only $5. That'll give you access to member-only content. And then last, but certainly not least, you can become a patron on Patreon by donating $5, $6, $7, $1 million. Whatever you want to donate, it goes an incredibly long way, and it gives you access to every single one of my YouTube videos on Patreon. That way, if you don't have YouTube Premium, you don't have to watch any advertisements. All right, other than that, thank you very much to all of my live viewers, and let's dive right in. From the New York Times, Pentagon withheld dozens of U.S. military injuries in Iran war. On social media, the Pentagon said later on Monday that the number of U.S. military casualties from Iranian attacks since July 7th had risen to nearly 100. So, as I like to say, when it comes to the U.S. military or CENTCOM or the Pentagon, whatever number they give you, add a zero and you're a little bit closer to the truth, right? So when the Pentagon says that the number of casualties has hit 100, the real number is 1,000. When the U.S. military says that we have 18 dead, the real number is 180, okay? And what I said a couple of months ago, like, what was it, 5 months ago now, that when Operation Epstein's Fury began, I said in the early stages, we're not going to be reporting any deaths, or maybe one, right? And they're going to wait until this fight keeps on going for months and months and months, and then they're going to start to slowly release information on the dead and pretend like it didn't happen immediately off the rippy. Because if people understood the reality, which is that we are experiencing mass casualty events, I think even MAGA Republicans will begin to abandon Donald Trump in terms of his never-ending war against Iran. Because we're not talking about like a missile that comes in and injures 2 people. No, we're talking about essentially carpet bombing all over our bases in the Middle East. We're talking hundreds of drones, hundreds of ballistic missiles, pelting these bases and literally leading to hundreds of casualties per base, ending up in these fucking military hospitals. It's absolutely disgusting. Okay. Oh, there's Pete Kegsbreth, the Secretary of War Crimes. Okay, here we go. In the week leading up to the Iranian attack on Friday that killed 2 U.S. soldiers and left 1 service member missing in Jordan, Iran carried out 3 other strikes against U.S. forces in the country. Those attacks injured dozens of U.S. service members and damaged several helicopters, according to several U.S. officials who spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss operational matters. The Pentagon did not disclose the earlier strikes nor the casualties and the damage they inflicted. Yet later on Monday, on social media, its chief spokesman said that the number of U.S. military casualties from Iranian attacks since July 7th had risen to nearly 100. The episode from this weekend is the latest example during the Iran conflict of the tension between what the Pentagon says is the need for operational security and the government's obligation to inform the public about the conduct of the war. In statements after airstrikes against Iranian military sites last week, U.S. Central Command, or CENTCOM for short, said that it was retaliating for Iran's attacks against commercial ships transiting the Strait of Hormuz, never mentioning Iran's strikes on bases in the region, including Jordan. CENTCOM is not required to release information about injured service members, especially when they quickly return to duty, a U.S. military official said. I think that's fucking asinine. I think that is delusional, that they have the authority to just not tell military families that, hey, your son got his legs blown off. Hey, your daughter, half her fucking face was ripped off by an Iranian Shahed drone. I don't know how many of you have family that are in the military, but like I do. I think that is fucking deranged. It should be criminally prosecuted. Any and all military officials who are withholding the number of casualties or withholding the number of dead, you should be thrown in the fucking Hague. Moreover, another U.S. military official added, why would the Pentagon divulge information that could help Iran zero in on its deadly ballistic missiles and drone attacks in Jordan and other bases in the Middle East where thousands of American troops are stationed? Also, I'd like to point out the fact that, like, the Iranians do not need any extra information to zero in on their targets. all of the casualties over the past 72 hours were air defense specialists. These are people who are trained in shooting down Iranian drones and missiles, which leads me to believe that the Iranians have some damn good intel. Now, they're not just randomly striking these bases. They are striking the part of the base where they can get the air defense specialists. So I don't know whether or not they're getting intel from the Russians or the Chinese, or whether they got agents embedded within the U.S. military, but God almighty, this shit is fucked. Okay. Central Command has also stopped announcing how many sites in Iran it hits each day for the same reason, U.S. officials say. Sean Parnell, the chief Pentagon spokesman, said that the military has not withheld or misrepresented U.S. casualties in the war. Quote, claims of concealment are fabrications meant to further distress the American people. So here's what I actually have his official post here. So he was... Luigi, shush, yo, Beans just fucking freaked the fuck out. What the fuck? I don't know what the fuck he saw, but he just absolutely freaked the fuck out. Oh my God. Beans, are you okay? Are you okay, Beans? I mean, there is a thunderstorm. Maybe there was thunder. That was fucking crazy. That was fucking crazy. You okay, Beans? It's okay, Luigi. He didn't mean to do. You okay, buddy? What happened? What happened? All right, sorry. Let's get back to it. That was fucking nuts. All right, so Sean Parnell, the official account, this is the official account for the Assistant to the Secretary of War of Public Affairs. He was responding to this other New York Times article talking about how the Pentagon is withholding dozens of U.S. military casualties, and this is what he said. The Department of War rejects these baseless and malicious accusations of hiding injury numbers as outright lies from partisan hacks at the New York Times who are desperate to smear America's military and its leadership. Claims of concealment are fabrications meant to further distress the American people in the wake of 3 service members killed in action. Disgusting behavior, even for the New York Times. In fact, U.S. military casualty information is publicly available and regularly updated online on the Defense Casualty Analysis System for everyone, including the media, to review. Injuries in the military encompass everything from minor sprained ankles during routine training to incidents entirely unrelated to combat operations. Cherry-picking raw numbers without context paints a deliberately misleading and incomplete picture. Our troops execute the Fuhrer's directives with excellence, supported by superior training, equipment, and medical care that prioritizes safety. This is the most transparent Department of War crimes in history. We challenge the so-called journalists who wrote these lies, one of whom was recently subpoenaed regarding an alleged violation of federal criminal law to stop the smears against the finest warfighting force on Earth. Complete bullshit. Also, I realized what he freaked out at. I just saw some lightning. There's going to be a fat thunder blast soon. So please do me a favor. Forgive me if Bean starts running around, and forgive me if Luigi starts barking. Both of my little babies fucking hate thunder. It scares the shit out of them. Anyway, back to the article here. He pointed to the Pentagon's Defense Casualty Analysis System, which he said is regularly updated with the latest information regarding dead and wounded U.S. troops. The publicly available site offers aggregate figures, but does not include information on specific mass casualty attacks of the sort that have occurred in Jordan over the weekend. So, long story short, the U.S. government, or the Pentagon, now has anonymous insiders who are leaking information, claiming that CENTCOM is lying, and this is a massive cover-up trying to prevent the American people from having a mass panic attack over the fact that we have lost hundreds of U.S. soldiers dead and thousands of casualties. This 2-week operation has turned into a 5-month-long war, and anybody and everybody with 2 fucking brain cells understands this war will not be over in the year 2026. This is a never-ending forever war. Speaking of forever war, here's a quick reminder of the current Fuhrer.
War and aggression will not be my first instinct.
We are ending the era of endless wars.
I'm not going to start a war. I'm going to stop wars.
We will measure our success
Luigi.
not only by the battles we win,
Okay, just thunder.
but also by the...
Sorry, guys. Luigi, it's just thunder, Mama. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Rewind a little bit.
We will measure our success not only by the battles we win, but also by the wars that we end, and perhaps most importantly, the wars we never get into. A short time ago, the United States military began major combat operations in Iran. I think this is going to be a short-term excursion.
What makes you so sure this won't become a quagmire?
We're not going to be there.
You're convinced this won't become a quagmire?
It's not a quagmire. Just wiped out the military.
Just wiped out the military. Meanwhile, we have so many dead U.S. soldiers. Meanwhile, we're now on day, what is it, 150? We are approaching the 5-month mark, folks.
We have a very dangerous...
And that does not include Operation Fortnite Big Night Hammer Chungus, the one from June of 2025. So one might be able to argue that this war has already gone for over a year. That's what I'll argue. That war began when we used the B-2 bombers to strike Isfahan, Natanz, and Fordow, right? So this war has already been going on for over a fucking year.
Country. We're almost finished.
He said we're almost finished 6 weeks ago.
All right, here's some live updates. Trump says the U.S. will hit the underground complex at Iran's Pickaxe Mountain pretty soon. So this is important. You know how Trump keeps on saying, like, you know, they've got the nuclear dust. He's talking about highly enriched uranium because they got nuclear dust and it's buried beneath a mountain of granite because we blew it up with our B-2 bombers and they can't get it. The only people who could get it would be us or China. Well, seemingly, that was a fucking lie, because the only reason he is contemplating attacking Pickaxe Mountain is because we now have some intelligence pointing to the fact that the Iranians gathered the highly enriched uranium from beneath that granite mountain that we blew up and moved it to Pickaxe Mountain. So now we're probably gonna do another Fortnite Big Night Midnight Hammer, Big Chungus type shit on fucking Pickaxe Mountain. I know, Weenie, I know, baby, it is so scary. I'll hold you, because it's so scary. All right, U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is set to face senators today after the Pentagon announced nearly 100 U.S. service members have been injured since July 7th. Here is the latest. The United States Führer, Donald Trump, said that the U.S. will hit the area of Pickaxe Mountain, a fortified underground facility believed to be connected to Iran's nuclear program, quote, probably pretty soon. Widening conflict. Kuwait, Bahrain, and Jordan say they have intercepted aerial attacks today. Meanwhile, Iranian-backed Houthi forces in Yemen have warned Saudi vessels to refrain from using the Red Sea, a move that the Führer has downplayed. Excuse me. I just burped on my dog's face. U.S. injuries. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth will appear before lawmakers in Congress today. Nearly 100 U.S. service members have suffered some level of injury since July 7th, according to the Pentagon, which has been slow to disclose non-fatal attacks. On Lebanon, the Führer said he and Lebanese President Joseph Aoun, who was at the White House today, will discuss, quote, concrete plans for the U.S. to help Lebanon oust Iranian-backed Hezbollah from parts of the south. Israel began partially withdrawing forces from southern Lebanon under a U.S.-brokered ceasefire agreement. So do you understand what that last part says? Trump met with the Iranian president to discuss rooting out Hezbollah, or sorry, not the Iranian president. He met with the Lebanese president to discuss ousting Hezbollah from northern Lebanon, right? So what does that mean? Hezbollah is the only fighting force defending the Lebanese people. Meanwhile, the actual puppet government of Lebanon, which is an extension of Israel, is going to start fighting within its own country against the orphan sons and daughters who are brave enough to raise a weapon against their disgusting, repugnant rape state controlling force, their invading force known as Israel. It's fucking disgusting, bro. I couldn't even imagine that. Luigi, it's okay. Wow, she is really gripping me. She's really gripping me. It's okay, mama. I'm gonna put you down. Try and be calm. I'm gonna keep you safe from the thunder. It can't hurt you. Okay, let's move on to the next story here. Here we go. The Pentagon, sinking billions into the Iran war, is quickly running short on cash. With some funds set to dry up within weeks, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth is set to press lawmakers Tuesday to address the increasingly urgent shortfall. So what you're going to start to see is a repeat of what happened during Iraq and Afghanistan. If you're too young for that, essentially what happened was the war started to turn badly for us pretty much immediately, losing so many fucking U.S. soldiers. And the Democrats did not want to keep on increasing the funding for the military because we didn't want to be in this war in the fucking first place. So what did Fox News, what did the Republican politicians say? They said that if you don't support increasing the military budget, you want our troops to die. This is why Republicans are incredibly happy about all of these casualties, because now they can use them as martyrs and be like, you see these dead soldiers? This is why we need an additional $1.5 trillion for the military, and if you don't support that, you want our troops to die. Prepare yourself. It's about to be Groundhog Day. All right. The Pentagon faces an urgent budget shortfall caused largely by the war in Iran, with some critical lines of funding set to run out within weeks, even as the Fuhrer, Donald Trump, escalates the conflict with Tehran, according to lawmakers and current and former U.S. officials. The funding crunch is already leading the Pentagon to limit training and maintenance that help maintain military readiness, according to 4 current and former officials, speaking on the condition of anonymity to candidly describe the budget's constraints. You know what I find really funny about this? They're like, hey, we need more money, so please, American taxpayers, give us more money, pay more money in your taxes. Meanwhile, Elon Musk is a trillionaire. Meanwhile, there are people worth hundreds of billions of dollars embedded within the U.S. government. They're not going to take any money from them. No. They're going to take money from the single mother of 4 living off of food stamps. They're going to take money from the disabled veteran who lost his legs in Iraq fighting to harvest oil for ExxonMobil. That's who they're going to fucking take money from. After the collapsed ceasefire with Iran could further strain, the collapsed ceasefire with Iran could further strain the military's budget. After 4 U.S. service members died after more than a week of intensified fighting, officials in Washington signaled they were preparing for a wider conflict. So Trump is now actually planning the invasion of Kharg Island. Oh my gosh, Luigi. We are genuinely getting ready to do a full-scale ground invasion of Iran. Which is exactly what I fucking told you would happen. It's what everybody with a brain cell told you would happen. All right, moving on to this story here. Saudi crude tankers turn back as the Houthis open a new front in the U.S.-Iran war. Can I scroll down? No, I can't. Dubai. 2 oil tankers carrying Saudi crude to Asia reversed course in the Red Sea on Tuesday after threats from Yemen's Iran-aligned Houthis as a widening Middle East conflict disrupted shipping through 2 of the world's most critical energy choke points. The diversions came as U.S. forces bombed targets in the south and west of Iran overnight. Tehran targeted U.S. sites in Bahrain, Kuwait, and Jordan, and at least 1 tanker was hit in the Strait of Hormuz in the latest escalation of violence that has all but wrecked an interim peace deal signed last month. The Houthis announced a naval blockade on Saudi Arabia on Monday, opening a potential new front in the war and raising the threat to global energy supplies and trade beyond the Gulf. The 2 tankers, which loaded Saudi crude bound for China and India this week, made U-turns and were headed toward the Suez. Shipping data on LSEG showed. However, sources said Saudi Arabia's Red Sea port of Yanbu was operating normally. Just so you understand, the Houthis have said that not only are they going to be blockading the Bab el-Mandeb, they said that any ships who dock at ports of Saudi Arabia will be targeted by Houthi drones. It's okay, baby. She's really afraid of this thunder. That's why she's gripping me so much and wants to be in my arms. So, new front has opened, the Bab el-Mandeb. Wow, that's some powerful thunder. Holy fuck. All right, let's go back to the article here. Oil prices gained around 2% on the latest attacks, but signs that Tehran and Washington want to resume diplomacy helped to limit price rises. U.S. Central Command said it had hit Iranian military command centers, maritime capabilities, missile and drone launch sites, and the air defense systems in its latest round of strikes. I don't believe a single fucking word that comes out of CENTCOM. I know that I've stressed this over and over again, but it's a sad, sad reality that I trust Iranian state media more than I trust American state media. It's fucking diabolical. All right, so here's some clips of Trump being asked about this forever war in the White House while sitting next to the Lebanese president.
Mr. President, there are no signs that Iran is ready to stop fighting. So what is the plan? Is the plan to just keep bombing until they give up?
There are no signs.
Why, do you know something that I don't know?
Well, they continue to attack our allies and
You
kill
don't know
Americans.
what the dialogue is behind the scenes, that they want to meet desperately to try and end it.
No, they
because
don't.
They're getting decimated.
No, they don't. The Iranian leadership they completely understand that any and all negotiations you make with the axis of Epstein, America and Israel, is complete and total bullshit. If we had a 10-day ceasefire, we would use those days to rearm, reassess, and relaunch an assault on Iran. The Iranians aren't stupid. We cannot maintain a ceasefire. We refuse to maintain a truce for multiple reasons, but the number one most important one is that the Israelis do not give Trump permission to end this war. And the Israelis have a vault in Tel Aviv with videos of this man, President Donald J. Trump, raping hundreds of children. So he cannot say no to the Israelis.
You don't get that when you listen to your fake station, but you don't know anything.
So talks are
you know
still
something that I
possible,
don't know? Do you know something I don't know?
Well, tell us.
I will tell you, they want to desperately meet, and until they're ready to meet in a meaningful way, we have no interest in even.
So the Ron election.
So even if he was telling the truth, he kind of just said, yeah, no, we're going to be going back to war. Because even if he was telling the truth, which he isn't, he's saying the Iranians desperately want to meet and they want to negotiate, but I don't want to. I'm just going to keep on bombing them. We have a psychopathic, warmongering child rapist in charge of the world's largest nuclear arsenal. It's absolutely fuck-wuckied. Excuse me, Luigi, I need this arm to operate the mouse. All right, more. Here's Trump again.
No, I think Lebanon has a very important place.
What is your level of concern of a blockade of the Red Sea by the Houthi rebels, opening up another front in the war?
See what happens. So far, it hasn't happened. It might happen. But we take care of things. If something like that happens, we take care of it. You know?
How are you going to take care of it? The way that you took care of the Strait of Hormuz? Because that didn't work out.
We've done that with the Houthis before, and we haven't heard from them in a while since we did what we did originally. That was about 45 days of very powerful action we took.
Yeah, people forget that we bombed Yemen for 45 days, just indiscriminately mass murdering civilians, claiming we were fighting against the Houthis.
Against the Houthis. And we've had no problem with the Houthis. They've had no problem with us for a long period of time, including during this conflict. I think that if there is something like that, we'll just have to take care of business.
And by the way, he must not be actually reading his intelligence briefings, because the Houthis already announced the blockade of the Red Sea. They already sent drones to the Bab el-Mandeb. Like we said like we read in that previous article, there are already Saudi crude oil ships making fucking U-turns and turning around because the Houthis are holding the line. It's absolutely brutal. I have a little bit of coverage here from CNN. This is a long video, but this part right here I find very important. I sped it up too.
Mandeb Strait. It accounts for around 15% of traffic, maritime traffic. I mean, this is just such a huge risk. Countries are starting to really draw down their reserves. How worried should we be about the Houthis at this point?
Well, they haven't or at least they haven't enforced this blockade. But if they do,
They have enforced the blockade. I don't know how early this was posted, 2 hours ago, but since then, they have enforced the blockade.
Significant, because this was the exit that Saudi Arabia had used to avoid the Strait of Hormuz, which we know has been either locked down or kind of open or kind of closed for about 5 months. They were basically transporting via pipeline and convoy the oil to the Red Sea and trying to get it out that way.
By the way, there is nothing that makes me happier than seeing the government of Saudi Arabia fucking suffer. I'm not sure if you guys know this, but in Saudi Arabia, they actually have slaves, okay? This is an ass backwards culture. The royalty, the Saudi royalty, they have slaves, dude. It's fucking disgusting.
That way.
And Saudi Arabia committed a fucking genocide in Yemen. Nobody talks about that.
They were doing that very successfully. Somewhere around the order of 4 million barrels a day had been exiting through this other choke point that now the Houthis want to close off. And so that is a significant threat.
I know Hegseth is live. We got to finish up this video and then we'll dive into that.
The kind of threat that the Strait of Hormuz is, but when you compile these things, it gets to be pretty significant. Now, oil prices, it is worth mentioning, although they are up about $20 from their low point from a few weeks ago when the Strait of Hormuz was mostly open, we're still also around $25 or $30 below the high point point for the war. So
yes, and right when the war started, the price of oil was skyrocketing. But then Trump began manipulating the market and was using our strategic petroleum reserve. That strategic petroleum reserve is now at the bottom of the barrel, and we can no longer use it unless we want to run the risk of actually having zero oil when, like, the Chinese try and start a war with us. So I can only imagine that the price of crude oil will rise to about $200 per barrel and then make the price of gasoline as a nationwide average about $10 a gallon.
The market right now is kind of saying, okay, you know, we think that this could be a problem. Maybe there's some room to rise, but we're not quite at the level that we are, or we were just a few weeks ago. The reason for that is that, as you mentioned, there are these inventories. China has almost 2 billion barrels of oil in its inventory. It continues to draw down that, and that's...
They have 2 billion barrels. We're down to 19 million, bro. 219 million. And if we go down to 200 million, that is the actual bottom. That is the minimum that we need for a strategic reserve.
Sapped demand for oil imports. So the big picture is this is a bigger problem today than we had yesterday, but still the market thinks that it can be managed, at least for the time being.
Absolutely fucking brutal. Okay, listen, if you're watching this pre-recorded, we're going to end the video here because Pete Hegseth, the alcoholic secretary of war crimes, is live testifying in front of, what is it, the House, or is it Congress? It's Senate. Sorry, Congress is the House. He's testifying in front of the Senate, so we're going to watch that. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. It costs you nothing, helps me immensely, and consider donating to the channel. If you're watching this live, you stay. We got to immediately transition and watch this. Thank you very much. Click that video right over there. It's a banger, and I know bangers. All right, we'll upload that later. Let's get to the testimony. Let's get to the testifying.
To fully replenish them, no matter how much money is thrown at this problem. Our global force posture is much weaker, and as assets have been moved now to the Middle East. And we are now much further away from a long-term solution to halt Iran's nuclear program than we were before Trump ripped up the deal that President Obama negotiated, which secured actual, measurable commitments and progress without ever starting a costly war. In fact, there are new reports that Iran may have moved nuclear assets.
Yo, when Beans had his freak out, he must have had his claws out because he scratched clean through this wood. Holy fuck.
It used to be a pretty somber and serious thing, a president taking America to war and costing lives and taxpayer dollars. But this president has been downright flippant. The people I represent worry Trump thinks this is all a game and has sent men and women into harm's way without any sort of plan.
Yes, he has.
And now that he's driven that car into the ditch, he wants taxpayers to bail him out. As the daughter of a World War II veteran and a Purple Heart recipient, the way this White House has blissfully operated with no plan for success is disrespectful to our men and women in uniform. These are patriots. They are highly trained and have sacrificed tremendously to keep us safe. They shouldn't be forced to put a show on for the president's birthday parade, or do the job of Border Patrol agents, or risk their lives in a disastrous war that the president
I'm going to get that video uploaded on the second screen. If I'm a little quiet, that's why.
And as a U.S. Senator, this administration's refusal to explain what it is doing or how this war is protecting Americans, its refusal to seek authorization from Congress, and its expectation that Americans will now just pay for it all without any explanation or transparency is disrespectful. And it's insulting to the people back home that all of us represent. So here we are, 5 months later. The strait is closed. The ceasefire hasn't just disintegrated.
Nelson, you here?
This war is now spiraling out of control again. The president is threatening escalation and war crimes and suggesting this could be another forever war. He has told us over 40 times now
all right, I'm gonna
that
real
a
quick
deal
pose for
is
you
near and the war will be over soon. But now he is asking for $70 billion more and for us to just trust him it'll work out fine.
Good.
Look, I've been very clear. My Democratic colleagues and I will do absolutely everything to ensure that we do take care of our service members and keep this country safe. Chairman Kaine, I hope you know that every Democrat on this committee deeply respects the sacrifices that you and our service members and their families are making. Everyone, who signed up to serve our country deserves to be more than an afterthought in a war that the president decided to launch despite all the blinking red warnings. But my colleagues and I cannot and will not support rubber stamping a request to bankroll this war and whatever other misadventures Trump wants to get us into next. The American people want to see a quick and strategic end to this war, not $70 billion of their tax dollars sent to keep it going. And I want to make a few important points. First, the president's request is not even primarily a request to cover the costs of the Iran war. This request is chock full of asks to fund unrelated DoD priorities, which should be considered through our annual appropriations process, not in an emergency supplemental. And that includes almost $1 billion for Southcom, nearly $1 billion to keep deploying the National Guard here in D.C., and more than $1 billion for the southern border. Secondly, President Trump is making this request as the Pentagon has a record-breaking $1 trillion total budget for FY26, including over $75 billion it has in unspent money from Republicans' big ugly bill. Understand you may have mismanaged your budget, Secretary Hegseth, but you have to do your due diligence to fix the cash flow problems you've caused before asking taxpayers for more. Third, the president is now asking for all of us to approve tens of billions of dollars in new funding for the war while his administration still has yet to share actual cost estimates, essential information to justify this request, and a plan for where on earth this conflict goes next. This administration is either hiding the truth from Congress and the American people, or if you take at face value what they've said, and in the few briefings that we've had, they have no idea what is going on and no plan to right the ship, neither of which is acceptable.
All done. Thank you.
Now, Trump is also asking Congress for over $10 billion to help struggling American farmers who have been crushed first by the tariffs and then by this war, which has shot fertilizer and diesel costs through the roof. I'm digging into that request, but let me be clear. As we're looking at what farmers might need to weather Trump's storm, we must also help families put food on the table. And to do that, we should delay and ultimately reverse Republicans' deep cuts to SNAP, which have already kicked at least 1 million kids off of food assistance. Finally, Trump has also requested, and I had to read this one twice to believe, $1.3 billion in new funding for the State Department for Global Health and Humanitarian Needs. At the very same time, his administration is withholding more than twice that amount in funding that has already been signed into law and is available for the same purpose. He's also asking for authorities to make U.S. taxpayer dollars subsidize the Venezuelan oil industry and to finance the establishment of private investment funds like the one he just handed over to one of his ballroom donors. Unfortunately, Secretary Rubio is not here with us today to explain those requests, to talk about how this war forced one of the largest evacuations of our diplomatic posts ever, or to explain whether, as a national security advisor, he still thinks this war is, quote, the right decision, and whether he still, quote, believes in it strongly. So this is really a request to make taxpayers pay for the president's reckless decisions, from the Iran war to his trade wars to his global health cuts, all while doing nothing to help our families back home who are suffering because of those decisions.
He doesn't give a fuck about anybody, bro.
That is what we should
Why
be
do you expect him to give a fuck about anything or anyone other than himself?
And others on both sides of the aisle will tell us shortly, there are urgent domestic needs that we should be addressing instead of sending more money for Trump to drop bombs overseas. Priorities like disaster relief for our communities that have been ravaged by the unthinkable, or taking action to lower families' costs. You know what's a crisis right now? The fact that there are families I hear from back home who are working full-time and still being forced to decide whether to skip meals so they finally can buy their kids a pair of shoes. You know what's a crisis? The fact that hospitals are shutting down and kids are going hungry because of Republicans' cuts.
Oh, Beans knocked
Instead
my
of
phone
bankrolling
off
the president's war or sending ICE $70 billion, my colleagues on the other side of the aisle could work with us to quadruple our investments to cure cancer or help families afford childcare or help them afford to cool their homes. Those are policy choices. And Republican leadership has chosen to focus on funding war and ICE endlessly without a single cent for our American families. So let me close with this. This president says we can't afford health care. We can't afford child care. We can't afford housing. But somehow we can always afford another war. No price tag on that. Families in Washington state are skipping doctor's visits so they can afford groceries. Trump wants Congress to cut him a blank check for a war that no one supports. The American people entrust us to spend their taxpayer dollars strategically and thoughtfully. This is a huge responsibility, so let me be clear. I'm ready to work with my colleagues in a bipartisan way, as always, to address the needs of our nation and the American people. But I hope we can have real conversations about why there seems to always be money for Trump's wars, but never money for the families back home who are desperate for a little relief. So I look forward to today's discussion. Thank you.
I will now introduce our first panel of witnesses. Today, we're going to be hearing first from our colleagues, Senator Mike Rounds of South Dakota, Senator Ted Budd of North Carolina, and Senator Alex Padilla of California. I welcome all of you, and Senator Rounds will begin with you first.
Chair Collins, Vice Chair Murray, and members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to highlight why food security and national security go hand in hand. I'd also like to thank the Trump administration for recognizing that input pressures have made it more difficult for American farmers to support their own operations. In South Dakota, farming and ranching is more than a job. It's a way of life built on hard work, stewardship, and the hope of leaving the land better for the next generation. Feeding and fueling the world has never been easy. Producers continue showing up year after year, despite drought, floods, disease, pests, volatile markets, and other challenges beyond their control. This supplemental funding request comes at a critical time.
All right, I'm back.
Farmers and ranchers are facing production costs that exceed market returns. Higher fertilizer, diesel fuel, seed, equipment, and crop protection costs, coupled with retaliatory trade practices and continued market uncertainty, have put enormous financial pressure on producers. Specifically, the projected loss per acre across the country in 2026 for corn is $131. For cotton, $342. For wheat, $114. And for soybeans, $80. While we work to strengthen America's ability to produce more of what we need here at home and reduce reliance on foreign supply chains, Congress should provide stability so producers can remain in business and continue producing the best food and fuel in the world. Today's threats extend well beyond weather and markets. Foreign adversaries, cyber threats, industry consolidation, arbitrary standards, and unfair trade practices impact farmers' ability to produce food, fiber, and fuel. Food security, energy security, and national security are connected. We also have an opportunity to strengthen both agriculture and energy security by permanently authorizing voluntary access to nationwide year-round sales of E15. Giving consumers the option to choose a higher ethanol blend would increase domestic fuel production, expand markets for corn growers, reduce reliance on foreign energy sources, and provide families with lower cost options at the pump. Given the significant defense investments included in this supplemental, I also want to emphasize the importance of fully funding our national defense. We are living in one of the most complex and lethal threat environments since the Second World War, and the brave men and women who volunteer to defend this country deserve the leadership, training, and equipment, along with resources necessary to maintain America's military advantage. Protecting America's food supply, energy supply, and national defense are not separate priorities. They reinforce one another. This supplemental provides needed assistance to help farm and ranch families endure today's economic challenges, while Congress and the administration continue advancing long-term policies that strengthen American agriculture. I urge my colleagues to support this supplemental request to provide stability to our ag producers at this time. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Rounds. Senator Budd.
I
Chair Collins,
fucking hate
Vice
Susan
Chair
Collins,
Murray,
bro.
members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify this afternoon to provide a voice for the people in Western North Carolina. More than 21 months ago, Hurricane Helene unleashed an unprecedented amount of rainfall on the Blue Ridge Mountains, causing severe flooding and devastating landslides. The storm left behind tens of billions in damage. In December 2024, Congress responded by approving a disaster supplemental that provided billions of dollars to Western North Carolina recovery. Additionally, North Carolina's state government stepped up by committing roughly $2.4 billion in state appropriations and redirecting more than $2 billion from state agencies for reconstruction. But the Blue Ridge Mountains' challenging terrain has made it uniquely difficult for federal programs to operate.
You know what I think they're doing right now? They're highlighting how much money we need to be spent in the United States of America on domestic issues like healthcare and this disaster relief. And they're going to do all of this before Pete Hegseth comes out and says, we need another $500 billion so that we can accomplish nothing in Iran. That's what they're doing. It's a perfect framing opportunity to be like, yeah, we need this money here, but instead, this alcoholic rapist named Pete Hegseth is going to demand the money so we can go kill more brown kids.
Department of Housing and Urban Development and other federal agencies play a key role in disaster recovery. And much of the existing disaster funding for those agencies has already largely been allocated. When I visit Western North Carolina, I see the impacts the delays in recovery have caused. Debris still clogs the waterways. Facilities that provide drinking water and manage wastewater have yet to be rebuilt. Most concerning, some homeowners are paying mortgages on properties that are still unlivable or yet to be rebuilt. Towns have been forced to embrace expensive short-term stopgap solutions just to carry out their most basic functions for their residents. In the small town of Beach Mountain, there is no long-term water supply. The dam and water treatment plant were heavily damaged, forcing the town out of compliance with state safety standards. And as a result, the state could be finding Beach Mountain $25,000 per day. Most repairs are needed so that the water treatment plant can function long-term. If funded, this process will take at least a year and require significant diversion of utilities and or daily water trucks just so hundreds of residents will have to have clean drinking water during construction. 3 years is too long to wait after a disaster, and we can't delay any longer. Tourism, the lifeblood of much of Western North Carolina, has begun to rebound, but there's still far too many areas that are unable to accommodate the travelers they once welcomed. But I want to highlight a few examples of success stories to show how ample funding for the last disaster supplemental, paired with exceptional planning and project execution, made an immediate impact on our mountain communities. Last July, portions of the Blue Ridge Parkway reopened after 57 landslides struck 200 miles of the parkway.
Whew. Sorry,
This
I had a
Memorial
lot
Day
of shit
weekend,
that I had
Lake
to deal
Lure
with real quick. Sorry, I've been very
reopened
quiet.
To the public after an incredible debris removal and refilling project. And I want to be clear that I fully support President Trump's request to replenish our munitions stockpile and strengthen our military. And I'm also
Replenish it with
appreciative
what,
of his
bro?
efforts
We don't
to
even
provide-
have the ability to manufacture the weapons. We fired 10 years worth of Patriot missiles in 5 fucking months. We have fired 80% of our interceptors. We don't have the capability to remake this ammo.
People ask me to make sure that they're not forgotten. This is Congress's chance to remind them that we're serious about helping them get back on their feet. I'm deeply grateful to the members of the committee for holding this hearing, and I look forward to continuing to work with you throughout this whole process. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Budd. Senator Padilla.
Why does she talk like that?
Vice Chairman.
Did she have a stroke?
Appreciate the opportunity.
Senator Padilla.
especially the survivors of last year's devastating fires in Los Angeles
She has
County.
Parkinson's?
And I want to acknowledge that some of them are here in the audience today.
You should not be allowed to be an elected official if you have Parkinson's. You should be immediately removed from office.
As many of you recall, 18 months ago, 60,000 acres across Southern California burned. That's roughly three and a half times the size of Manhattan. Over 16,000 homes, businesses, schools, and other structures were destroyed. And most devastatingly, 31 Californians lost their lives. To respond, more than 7,500 firefighters worked literally around the clock for more than 3 weeks to extinguish the fires. And those firefighters weren't just from California. Many came from our neighboring states of Oregon, Washington, Arizona.
A bunch came from Mexico.
Some as far away as Utah, Texas, and Montana. Colleagues, because as Americans, that's what we do. We help each other.
Shatter just said Susan Collins has Lincoln Parkinson's.
Who a community voted for in the last election. When Americans need help, we help.
No, we don't.
Now, walking around the Palisades and the Altadena communities during the fires and after the fires, you couldn't help but be moved by the scale of the devastation, the images of nothing standing but a chimney amongst a pile of ash. Cars literally melted into the streets or the driveways where they had been parked. In the wake of disasters like this, Congress has historically come together on a bipartisan basis to provide aid and long-term recovery funding to help communities recover and rebuild, regardless of whether the disaster was in a state represented by Republicans or Democrats. But instead of following that historical practice, this administration has left California waiting for more than a year and a half, while asking Congress to fund hundreds of billions of dollars for other purposes.
Yeah, see? I told you. That's what they're doing. They're framing it as, hey, we need this money. We got people dying. We got no health care. Nobody can afford groceries. We got disaster. And this is genius, because then Pete Hegseth is going to come up and go, I need $500 billion to kill the Browns immediately. This is very clever. Is it painstakingly long? Yes, but it's necessary.
Request. Instead, it asks taxpayers to spend hundreds of billions of dollars more on a war that Congress has never authorized, a war that's raising gas prices, worsening supply chains, making our country less safe, and for which 17 service members have already paid the ultimate sacrifice.
At least
with
18.
Many more seriously injured. Now, we know this committee can address disaster relief without tying it to a laundry list of unrelated priorities, because it's done so many times before, including as recently as December 2024, when the committee on a bipartisan basis passed more than $100 billion of relief. There's no reason we can't do it again. Colleagues, we must reject the premise that it is okay to keep survivors waiting for help because the president, any president, decides they need something else from Congress to get it. To that end, I do want to thank my colleagues, Senators Tillis, Schiff, and Curtis, for joining me in sending a bipartisan letter to the committee just yesterday, supporting long-term disaster recovery funding. Madam Chair, I'd like to enter this letter into the record at this time.
Thank you, Senator Padilla.
I'm not done. I just want to enter the letter to the record.
Without objection,
thank you.
It will be.
And I'll be wrapping up soon here. I also want to reiterate what I said earlier. We know the next disaster is coming. Anyone who stepped outside of Washington this last weekend or across at least a dozen states saw and breathed the very impact of wildfires. And it may be Canada now, but it's going to be one of our states next. As of last week, the federal government has already spent over $3.3 billion in wildfire suppression this fiscal year, even though the peak of fire season is August and September. That's still ahead of us. That should concern the committee. We cannot allow wildfire suppression funding to run out before the end of the fiscal year. So in addition to the long-term disaster recovery funding, I urge the committee to examine the need for emergency suppression funds
By the way, real quick, if you're here live, I'm not even recording. If you're enjoying what you're watching, remember this is real independent media and I get no fucking money from outside sources other than you. So if you want to help support this channel, click the thanks button down below to tip me directly. Click the join button down below to become a member of the channel for $5. You can also gift memberships. Shouts out to everybody who's ever gifted a membership. You can buy merch and you can become a patron on Patreon by donating $5, $6, $7, whatever you want to donate. It goes an incredibly long way. And then last but not least, please do this right now. Like, comment, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And also, if you're in a group chat of dumb fuck idiots like I am, share this with your group chat, okay? Thank you very much. Let's get back to it.
That they need to recover and rebuild, regardless of which state they call home. Thank you very much.
I appreciate the testimony of the entire panel as we consider the supplemental submitted by the administration. Your
This is a
testimony is very
gerontocracy.
helpful to us.
We live in a
Thank
fucking
you.
gerontocracy. Look at this geriatric bitch who's got Parkinson's. Get the fuck out of the Senate and go live in a retirement home. Like, don't you want a pina colada? Don't you want to sit by the pool, you old crotchety bitch? All right, are they bringing in the alcoholic Secretary of War Crimes now? Oh, it's a necrocracy? Like they're necrotic? Like they're like Thank you for the for becoming a member. Have you read Ken Clippenson's newest article about the NSPM 7 memos of the State Department? It's absolutely terrifying. I saw some stuff on this, but yeah, long story short, they are now going to be like actually sending the military after leftists.
Leave it to
absolutely fucked
our
up.
military
Thank you for the
witness to be on
$14
time.
from Ontario. Oh, by the way, Mitch McConnell is dead, and we're pretending like he isn't.
While we are
Mitch McConnell is
waiting for
dead,
our
and we're
second
pretending
panel
like he
to be
isn't.
Seated. Let me introduce them. We are joined today by the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of Agriculture, Brooke Rollins, and the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Kane. These administration officials represent the largest components of the administration's request, and we welcome them to the committee today. Secretary Hegseth, we will begin with your testimony. Please proceed.
Well, Chair Collins, Vice Chair Murray, members of the Senate Committee on Appropriations, thank you for the opportunity to testify on President Trump's supplemental funding request for the Department of War. As you know, we live in a dangerous world that requires bold and swift action. Hence, this supplemental request for fiscal year 2026. This request is an urgent, necessary injection of resources to address the immediate needs of our department. The supplemental funding request is not a substitute.
Nice.
The witness will suspend until order is restored in the committee room. I know that individuals feel very passionately, but we must have order in the hearing room so that we can proceed. We're now going to move forward with our hearing, and Secretary Hegseth, please proceed.
Thank you. The supplemental funding request is not a substitute for the president's full $1.5 trillion base budget request. $1.5 trillion.
Yeah!
Mr. Secretary, please suspend until order is restored in the hearing room. We will begin the timing clock since you've been interrupted twice.
These motherfuckers, they got their signs folded up their ass, and they're getting into these congressional hearings and going, give me that. Fuck you!
Please proceed.
1.5 trillion is what the president seeks and what we need to defend the country.
The members of this committee understand better than most that long-term strategic dominance cannot be funded through one-off supplementals.
We will have order
Suck
in
my
the
dick.
hearing room.
Nah, suck my dick.
Mr. Secretary, please proceed.
Collectively, the budget proposals submitted under President Trump follow a simple logic.
There's so many!
I would ask that the Capitol Police, whose professionalism I admire, remove those who are seeking to disrupt the hearing.
Oh, this is great.
Please proceed.
President Trump's following a simple logic. The military requires a generational investment to deliver on
Move
peace.
that fucking head. Sit down!
We know the best way to create peace is to prepare for war, to deter it. And that's exactly what the Department of War is doing, building a force so
Any
capable
advice?
that it
Yeah,
would be
alien.
absurd
Do not join
for
the
anyone
military,
to
bro. You're
challenge
gonna
it.
die.
As the direct result of neglected priorities and gross negligence that ignored threats left over from the previous administration, President Trump inherited a set of global and domestic crises, deferred maintenance almost across the board. Instead of steering the ship through gathering storms, former leaders let our military languish through social experiments and globalist appeasement.
DEI!
Sheer weakness. Under President Trump, we have built a different type of department. The Pentagon is no longer run by bureaucrats. Instead, it's led by
War criminals!
combat veterans and world-class business leaders who are running the department like a business.
Oh my God.
And tech titans who are bringing lethal innovation to the battlefield. We're also at a different moment, and we cannot afford inaction. If we don't make critical investments right now in tech, in compute, in AI, in autonomy, in space, our adversaries who are already making these types of investments could outpace us.
They already have. The Chinese already outpace us
Without
in every
these
single one of
funds,
those
we
fields.
face critical shortfalls that threaten our ability to also simply pay our service members, rapidly replenish equipment and munitions, and sustain vital operations without disruption. This supplemental request serves two purposes: sustain our military readiness to meet this year's new demands, and accelerate critical capabilities to replace and
why doesn't he have
augment those
eyebrows?
we
What
have
happened to his
used
eyebrows?
in contingencies. But make no mistake, this is not a one-for-one replacement.
Deadass,
We
what
are
happened to his eyebrows?
upgrading and we are modernizing across the force. On the readiness front, we requested $21 billion. This will fund military pay, replace much of the equipment utilized during recent operations, sustain forward-deployed forces, and grow personnel and strength while stabilizing mission-critical fueled shortfalls and supporting the National
We've
Guard.
already spent $200 billion on the
capability
war.
side, we requested $46 billion. These funds will expand production lines and accelerate delivery of high-demand
So that's
munitions.
$70 billion.
We're talking about solid rocket motors, JDAMs, hypersonics, and counter-drone capabilities. Additionally, we will use this investment to secure digital and space dominance, including resilient satellite networks. Department leadership recognizes that appropriating those funds is just the first step. Once funds are appropriated, or portioned, to the department, we need to promptly execute on them. And that's why we're requesting targeted legislative authorities, like transfer authority, to prioritize our greatest needs and opportunities, multi-year procurement for weapon systems, revolutionizing the speed and scale of munitions procurement, and New START authorities. Rest assured that every dollar appropriated to the Department of War will be focused on building the lethality of our joint force and reinforcing peace through strength.
Yeah, my ass, bro.
As I have said before, not fully funding this department, the Department of War, and we know what that means, that means $1.5 trillion, given the world that we live in and the disaster of what the Biden administration budgets gave us. Not funding this department at $1.5 trillion, I believe, is the greatest threat that our nation faces. Either we invest in our warriors at this moment of step change on the battlefield and growing threats, or this is all just talk. I look forward to working with this committee to secure those funds so that our warfighters
Yep,
who
1.5
continue to do
trillion.
their work every day to keep our great republic.
The 1.5 trillion is what they have already. They want an additional
Thank you,
500
Mr.
billion.
Secretary. General Kane.
Chair Collins, Vice Chair Murray, distinguished members of this committee, I'm honored today to appear before you with Secretary Hegseth and Secretary Rollins to testify on the Department of War's fiscal 2026 supplemental funding request. And I'll note I fondly remember my time at USDA earlier in my career where I had the chance to serve there. I'm also joined today by my senior enlisted advisor, SEAC Dave Isom. As always, I'm deeply grateful for this committee's continued partnership and support for our common defense. I'd like to begin by expressing my deep condolences and that of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and the SEAC for the fallen from this past weekend and their families. Today we remember First Lieutenant Tyler Feehan, Sergeant Michael Swinton, and Private Isabel Gonzalez.
19 years old she was.
Of our last fallen will be released when we can. I'm humbled daily by the profound commitment of the incredible 2.8 million Americans, just like these names that I've just mentioned, who make up our joint force.
Yeah, the Legion
and
of
serve our
Goyim.
nation every day. Also, on behalf of the Joint Force and the Joint Chiefs, I want to express my sincere and heartfelt condolences to the family of Senator Graham for their loss and all of you.
Eat shit! Lindsey Graham is dead and roasting in hell next to Mitch McConnell and Charlie fucking Kirk. Oh, baby! Oh, baby!
There is no doubt he made a difference to the safety and security of our nation.
You're right. He made a huge
July
difference. He made us way less safe. Way less safe. He was a traitor.
Marshall said, and I quote, "For almost 20 years, we had all of the time and almost none of the money. Today, we have all of the money and
Thanks
no
for the
time."
$5.
His words resonate powerfully with me today as we find ourselves in a somewhat similar situation. I've come to you today to request the necessary funds while in the window of opportunity, while time is still on our side. The United States of America faces a global list of military challenges in the Middle East, in Europe, in the Pacific, both nuclear and non-nuclear challenges, and the continued threat of terrorism. We find ourselves living and leading in complex and dynamic times. Our adversaries are aligning in their interests, creating simultaneous challenges across multiple domains. They are sharing intelligence, combat capabilities, and technology that is accelerating the speed of war. It is an imperative that Americans understand that the character of war is
Yes,
changing.
this is the general who stopped Donald from nuking Iran 13 times. 13 times he has stood in the way and said, "No, Donald, you are not nuking them."
To properly arm America's military. Rapid advancements in AI, autonomous systems, deliver critical
Yes,
technological
13 times.
advantages.
Trump has requested to nuke Iran 13 times over the past 5 months.
Unprecedented strategic vulnerabilities and uncertainty across the world, to include right here at home. The low barrier to entry created by affordable, ubiquitous, unmanned systems means our adversaries, rogue actors, state and non-state actors, and violent extremists have access to disruptive and potentially lethal technologies at scale. We've seen this in Ukraine, and we must adopt elements of this fight for our future fights. Conflict is never confined neatly to the land, sea, or air domains. The modern battlefield stretches from the seabed up to cislunar space and beyond, cyberspace, and in the information domain, all at the same time. Our nation must be prepared to fight and win.
By the way, if the $1.5 trillion military budget isn't enough for you to win this war, you're incapable of winning this fucking war. An additional $500 billion is not gonna get you to fucking win.
Days or weeks in World War II down to milliseconds. Your joint force must be ready because the United States military is America's greatest insurance policy. And I acknowledge all of us find it difficult at times to pay for insurance before we need it. But we must have insurance before the storm comes. The Armed Forces of the United States of America serves as our nation's ultimate safeguard and our insurance policy to preserve, protect, and defend our national interests, security, and prosperity. To uphold this responsibility, we require predictable and consistent funding. This will allow us to partner effectively with our defense and national industrial bases.
You know what's funny is they would get all of this money if we took it from the money that we're giving Israel. Like if you just, I don't want them to have this money, but if you really wanted this money, stop sending it all to Israel and use it for us.
And I continue to ask myself, if not now, then when? And if not us in this room and the rest of the Congress and the nation, then who? I acknowledge the environment we all serve in, but always remember that we are all Americans with deep and abiding love of our nation and our military service members and their families.
Now they can suck my
I've come
fucking
today to
dick.
ask for your help and your support. America's armed forces need $1.5 trillion to meet the military challenges of the future. This supplemental is a part of that. And to be allowed to use this capital to pay for military personnel, operations and maintenance expenses, and accelerate investments on critical technologies, as the Secretary just mentioned. It is critical that we stay ahead of our adversaries, and we must have the funds before we're out of time. In closing, I ask all of us to remember our deployed service members around the world right now.
The Legion of Goyim.
Especially our Army teammates who remain deployed after losing their friends and teammates this past weekend.
In the name of
and
pedophilia.
I again ask all of us here in the Senate and across the American people to never forget our fallen and their families who continue to show us what courage, tenacity, grit, and commitment to the nation looks like. Thank you very much, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, General. Secretary Rollins.
Thank you so much, Chairwoman Collins, Ranking Member Murray, and distinguished members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to appear before you today. Let me begin with the bottom line up front. The United States Department of Agriculture is joining today the United States Department of War in a fight for America and for American flourishing. Yeah. After all, defending America's ability to feed and fuel and clothe herself is defending America, full stop. This can be easily forgotten. For centuries, we built farms and ranches and transportation that fed not only America, but the world too. For a long time.
Bitch, you're giving us explosive diarrhea right now.
Safe. But across the past 100 years, and especially across the last administration, we took that source of strength in war and peace, our farms and our ranches, and the communities that surrounded them, and we hollowed them out. We made them weak, and we put them on the precipice of decline and extinction. We sent our food production overseas. In fact, 2023 was for the first time a significant net importer of our food for America. And in so doing, we replaced American production with massive amounts of imports. We allowed and even encouraged the consolidation of agriculture, seed production, processing, fertilizer, and beyond.
Thanks for becoming a
into
loyalist.
Massive industries at scale. Today, nearly 85% of our meat packing capacity is controlled by just 4 companies, including 2 that are foreign-owned. Additionally, our largest pork company in America is owned by a China company, or China. 4 fertilizer companies now represent 78% of the production versus just a couple of decades ago, that was in the dozens. And 2 seed companies now produce more than 50% of the seed for America. These are national security implications.
This is all the fault of hypercapitalism. You're talking about monopolization of industries and offshoring. That was all started by Ronald Reagan. This is Republicans' faults across the fucking board.
Rose 19%, crop protection rose 30%, fertilizer rose over 50%, fuel and oils rose nearly 33%, electricity 36%, and repair and maintenance 27%. As these costs climbed, commodity prices plummeted, farm income fell by more than 90.
Low-key, I wouldn't even know if I had that diarrhea virus. I'd be shitting.
Declines in history. At the same time, producers saw not one new trade deal across the world, resulting in an unprecedented $50 billion agricultural trade deficit. American farmers deserve better, and our national security now demands it. As long as we are beholden to foreign and even hostile countries for our food and our fuel, our freedom is in jeopardy. Since my first day at USDA, we have been committed to addressing this crisis head on. In addition to implementing the historic working families tax cuts, thanks to so many in this room who worked so hard, moving $40 billion in disaster and economic assistance to producers across the country, securing 19 new trade deals, and decreasing that $50 billion agricultural trade deficit in 1 year by 42%.
None of that is
true.
true.
Our corn exports are expected to be at a record-breaking 35%, ethanol up 11%, dairy up 15%, and tree nuts up 11%. We are making progress, but we have...
Nobody can afford this shit, you cunt! You're exporting it, and you fucking rich bastards are making money off of it. Nobody can afford fucking groceries, you bitch!
Markets. We have led robust responses to animal health threats, including HPAI and the New World Screwworm, and have reduced unnecessary regulatory burdens and partnered with producers to strengthen the domestic demand for American agriculture. These are lasting reforms and will change the trajectory of American agriculture for the future. The trade agreements will take time to fully execute and generate even more exports. The biofuel investments take time to increase
Why is she so
the demand
smiley?
for American.
Because she has profited millions of dollars in the past year. These motherfuckers participate in insider trading across the fucking board.
Continue to take some time to build out. But we are confident that the direction of American agriculture is changing for the better. But many producers continue to face economic pressure as we build that economic infrastructure out. Specialty crop growers across the Northeast, the Mid-Atlantic, the Pacific Northwest, and Florida suffered devastating freeze losses this past winter. Producers across the plains continue recovering from catastrophic wildfire and events occurring while many operations are still working to catch up financially. That is why our proposal includes $10 billion in temporary economic assistance for 2026 row crop and specialty crop producers, and also includes $1.1 billion to help producers recover from catastrophic freeze losses suffered this past winter. Congress has taken similar action over many decades, and we're so grateful for that, but including most recently 2023 and 2024 with economic aid and disaster relief aid with the hurricane seasons. I want to be 100% clear as I close. For the sake of American national security, American existence, and the American future, we must, in the long run, end this system that has grown up like a weed and strangled the American farmland and food production. Farmers want to farm for their products, not for a government check. They want to be free from dependency and free to innovate. We know what happens when they are able to do that. They build and feed the greatest republic in the history of man. But when they aren't, well, we know the danger that we are in today. But that's why this supplemental is so important. It provides a bridge and extends a hand to Americans who need it. It buys the nation the security that we need, and it buys us time to deconstruct and then reconstruct a new system, putting our farmers and ranchers first, and to restore the system that originally made America great. For our farmers, the defense of American freedom continues. They only ask to be free to fight. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your testimony. We will now begin with questions for our witnesses. As you can see, we have a very full attendance of committee members today, so I would ask that all of our colleagues to please keep track of the clock and stay within the allotted 5-minute question.
Oh, what is this woman? 631.
Time. With that, let me begin. Secretary Hegseth, General Kane. Members on both sides of the aisle have questions about the authorization strategy objectives and conduct of operations in the Middle East. Regardless of our differing views, the fact remains that there are must-pay bills and urgent requirements facing the department that affect the ability of our military to deter and defend against potential aggression worldwide. Portions of the supplemental request go toward paying these bills and are necessary to restore readiness, repair, or replace battle damage to aircraft, ships, or bases, and address urgent munitions challenges. I understand and am told that some military services face near-term solvency challenges. What will be the impact on our troops if additional funding is not provided? Are there military exercises, for example, that are at risk of cancellation? What message will we be sending to the world? Secretary Hegseth, either you or Senator or General Kaine.
Chairwoman, I very much appreciate that question, and it's because it's connected to the real-world realities of this budget cycle. There is training right now and training in the future that would have to be curtailed if we do not get our budget needs met and met urgently. And yes, some of that has to do with the current budget cycle and how things come together. But we are a department that for 4 years met funding shortfalls under the previous administration. It was not a priority to fund the Department of Defense under Joe Biden. It also took the munitions and a lot of there were 5 supplementals out of this committee that took munitions one for one and sent them to Ukraine and had tried to replace them with the same bureaucratic process that was too slow and didn't replace them in real time. And then there were threats that were ignored around the world. So you're looking at a lot of negligence and a lot of
I think he's buzzed right now. Absolutely. He's definitely had some whiskey
today. And so that's why I call this a generational investment. It truly is. This is $1.5 trillion budget with this supplemental being part of it is how we catch up and get ahead. And ensure in the process we're putting soldiers and sailors and airmen first, Marines first, Guardians, that their pay increases, that the end strength increases that have gone up because recruiting is at historic levels are fully funded. So rather than trying to play catch up and make sure we're not losing training, we should be ahead of that curve. And that's where we think $1.5 trillion can get us.
Thank you. Senator Kaine, I keep calling you Senator General Kaine, I'm going to ask you to respond for the record because in my remaining time, I do want to ask Secretary Rollins a question. Secretary Rollins, as we heard from the previous panel, our country has many outstanding recovery needs from disasters and other weather-related events over the past 2 years. As this chart shows, and this is a chart from your department, many have unmet weather-related agricultural losses. In Maine, many of our producers are struggling amid a combination of market volatility and disaster conditions last year, which included excessive rainfall in the spring, followed by a severe drought. They need relief. Yet the administration's supplemental request does not include funding to address these recovery needs.
The clip of beans
is
so fucking funny.
$1.1 billion to help Florida agricultural producers rebound from a severe freeze this past winter.
That was so
but
funny.
Nothing for prior disasters in other states. Can you explain USDA's thinking behind focusing your request just on the 2026 freeze rather than on the 2025 disaster declarations that you made?
Yes, Senator, thank you for that question. Obviously, the discussions that went on over at OMB and with our teams continue, but what I will say is we are obviously 100% in support of any sort of disaster relief program for our farmers, whether it's hurricane, tornado, drought,
Yo, real quick, in case some of you missed it, this is what happened earlier during the video when a huge thunder blast scared the ever-loving fuck out of Beans. In terms of concealment are fabrications meant to further distress the American people. So here's what I actually have his official post here. So he was... That flash of black was Beans. U.S. casualties in the war. Quote, claim... Can I play this in super slow-mo? Hold on. Claims of concealment are You can't see it? Fuck you mean? Oh, you can't see it. I'm sorry. Hold on. Let me turn me off. Where am I? Camera? All right, here, watch. Oh, why is the audio all the way down? Here. Look at this again. One more time. So he was... One more time in full speed. In the war. Quote, claims of concealment are fabrications meant to further distress the American people. So here's what I actually have his official post here. So he was... Oh, that shit was so fucking funny. Okay. Let me put my camera back on. Put the volume back on.
More for the National Guard and this administration's illegal strikes in the Caribbean, urgently needed for the Iran war.
Well, Senator, I wouldn't, of course, agree with your characterization, but why this kind of spending is needed is because of the gross negligence and neglect of the Biden administration inside our department. Ran it like a bureaucracy, abandoned our strength posture around the world, so we're having to reestablish deterrence. You mentioned the end strength numbers, and I will acknowledge that we are ahead of schedule on end strength in recruiting. 8,000 in the Navy, 6,000 in the Army, 4,000 in the Air Force. Because under President Trump, there's been record and historic over 30-year recruiting records inside our department since he won the election, because the American people didn't want to sign up for what Joe Biden was providing our military.
Let me
and they want to sign up for what President Trump is doing in his leadership. And so those are good problems to have that we need to fund and a reflection of momentum. And this budget will allow us to continue the kind of momentum that gets us ahead.
My point is that a lot of this request does not feel like an emergency. And let me move on. Secretary Hegseth, like most Americans, I've had a lot of trouble following this administration's contradictory statements about the war. On April 8th, you said, and I quote, their missile program is functionally destroyed, launchers, production facilities, and existing stockpiles depleted and decimated and almost completely ineffective. Mr. Secretary, Iran has been firing at U.S. military bases in the region and its ships for the last week. How is it possible, if their capabilities were, quote, functionally destroyed 3 months earlier, as she claimed, for them to be doing this now?
Senator, Iran is at the weakest point militarily it has ever been in the past decade. Certainly, maybe in 47 years, as they've gathered effectively a terror army. And that terror army was built to try to create conventional capabilities to defend against a pursuit of nuclear weapons, which meant thousands of ballistic missiles, many of which we have destroyed, others of which they have put inside facilities and hidden in underground facilities.
Trump literally said the Iranians have a right to have ballistic missiles.
No doubt, but the amount of damage that we've done to them over the course of these series of operations has put them in the worst place they've ever been.
Okay, well, let me move on. On May 5th, you claimed that Iran doesn't control the strait, and you said that there was a, quote, powerful red, white, and blue dome over the strait. If that was true, how did Iran shrink ship traffic in the strait to a trickle again last week?
We pushed almost, I believe, between 400 and 500 million barrels of oil under the nose of Iran over the course of Project Freedom, which went
Bullshit.
underground, which I
Complete false.
acknowledged after
Completely,
we did so
completely
covertly
false.
because it was more effective to do so quietly than to do so publicly. So we've been in control of moving traffic through there for quite some time.
No, you
we
haven't.
retained the ability to recklessly shoot at commercial shipping, and that's what happened. We had a ceasefire, and then they shot at commercial shipping.
Well, you
Ceasefire never
also
started.
said at
That's
that
what changed it.
same press conference, and I'm going to quote you, you urged Iran to, quote, let innocent ships pass freely. These international waters belong to all nations, not to Iran to tax, toll, or control. Last week, President Trump said the U.S. would charge a 20% toll to each ship to pass through the state. So based on your opposition to tolls, did you talk to the president out of that idea, or did someone else?
Iran's not charging tolls, and they're shooting at ships right now.
The question was about Trump's
Trump
tolls.
said that he wanted to charge a 20% toll.
We have a blockade right now of all Iranian ships and Iranian ports.
That's not the
and,
question, you fuck.
It's effective.
My time is out.
That's not the question, you fucking piece of
Senator
shit. Ball
Murkowski.
gag, 50 lashes.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and thank you all for being here. Challenging times, I think we all recognize that. Secretary Hegseth, I want to ask, just specific to Iran authorization, the administration has made the case that the action in Iran falls under the president's Article 2 authorities, and we can have disagreement. Reasonable people can disagree about the boundaries of the presidential war powers, and have for a long period of time. But I look at the War Powers Resolution, and it's not ambiguous. It requires the president to terminate hostilities within 60 days, absent congressional authorization. So hostilities began February 28th.
All right, here's what he's going to say. Mark my words. I know Pete. Pete is going to say that it technically hasn't been 60 days because we had a ceasefire. Even though there was no real ceasefire, we were bombing. He's going to say none of that counts, and we get to restart the 60-day counter ever since, what, like 10 days ago?
Then in June, an MOU is signed to preserve the ceasefire while negotiations continue. That MOU has now collapsed, and we are seeing the resumed attacks in the Straits of Hormuz. On July 10, the administration sends Congress a new war powers notification, effectively restarting the 60-day clock again. So I'm concerned about this sequence because you have a situation where the claim essentially allows the president to extinguish the war powers clock just at the moment that it becomes legally inconvenient through declaration of temporary ceasefire. Then it's reset, avoiding the congressional authorization that the Constitution requires and the war powers intends. So we had an opportunity in previous appropriations hearing for me to ask if you felt the administration had all the authority that it needed. You indicated at that time that no, additional authority was not needed. Are you still, is the administration still taking that position about needing no authorization from Congress at this time?
Senator, I know there's a long-standing legal debate on this particular topic, but
No,
we
there
certainly,
isn't.
as a department, share the position of the White House that we have all the authorities necessary at this moment.
So let me just kind of do a follow-on. In the Clinton administration, this is 1999, there was an operation that was launched, Operation Allied Force, NATO airstrikes against Yugoslavia. There was not a prior congressional authorization that was sought. President Clinton notified Congress under the War Powers Resolution, and then subsequent to that, sent Congress an emergency supplemental funding request. It was about $6 billion to cover the cost of Kosovo operations. Congress then passed a supplemental package that covered the president's request plus additional military funding. But Congress never passed a standalone authorization for use of military force in Kosovo. When the war powers clock was set to run out then in May of 1999, the Clinton Justice Department's Office of Legal Counsel issued an opinion holding that the supplemental appropriation itself, passed without any authorizing language, satisfied the War Powers Resolution requirement. So is the department looking to that or intending to rely on that same reasoning that funding alone can substitute for explicit congressional authorization?
Senator, I would have to defer to our legal department, and we'll get back to you with our views on that. But as of right now, we think standalone Article 2 authorities exist for us to conduct this operation on behalf of the defense of the American people, that the president has those authorities, and seeking this funding is important in pursuit of that and our $1.5 trillion budget. But I wouldn't connect the two without consulting with our
She's just afraid of the thunder.
Folks first.
In my remaining time, let me turn to you, Secretary Rollins. I appreciate that you have acknowledged that fishermen are farmers of the sea. I don't know whether you are aware whether any fishermen will be eligible for any of the supplemental funding. They too have faced many of the same challenges that our farmers have with high fuel costs, the impact from tariffs, disasters that we have seen. In the 15 seconds remaining, any help for our fishermen?
Well, I remember having the conversation with you when we were going through the process, and my commitment to you and to Senator Collins and some of our others on across the aisle was that it's time for USDA to recognize our fishermen as part of our farmers of the sea. That's never happened before. We now have an office at USDA focused on fishermen. And so I think as you all move forward with the supplemental, the conversation, and obviously up to you all what that looks like, but very supportive of treating our fishermen similarly to the rest of our farmers. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Senator Durbin.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Mr. Secretary, I'd like to ask you to help me reconcile some numbers. It's my understanding that this whole supplemental funding request is $87.6 billion, and most of the funding, $67 billion, is for the Department of Defense. Yet we are told the Department of Defense still has $75 billion in unobligated funding from last year's reconciliation package. Is that true?
Roughly correct numbers, yes.
So you've left some change on the dresser before you prepared to come for this hearing. What's going to happen to that $75 billion?
Well, that 75 is, there's plans and designs on that, part of the rebuild of our military, which had to be undertaken. And so the One Big Beautiful Bill gave us specific avenues. But I'd have to get you the exact numbers of what that is left to be allocated.
Does it have to do with the war in Iran?
No, this is rebuilding our military from what was not funded in the past under the Biden administration. So this is from 2026, One Big Beautiful Bill, which helped move the president's priorities like Golden Dome for America, move away from all the woke priorities of what the Biden administration was pursuing, give us a chance to start cutting these deals on munitions, all the things that the president wanted us to focus on: shipbuilding, hypersonics. I mean, the Biden administration ignored hypersonics. They just decided to pretend like that technology didn't exist and we shouldn't invest in it.
What the fuck are you talking
there
about?
Are things.
That's not true
I don't know what Lloyd Austin
We have been
did
developing
for 4 years.
hypersonic
I really
missiles
don't.
for over a
The
decade.
amount of neglect, the amount of stale thinking and bureaucracy,
proceed if I might
was
before
staggering.
Reclaim your time, Durbin.
One Big Beautiful Bill gave us a chance to get
Let me interrupt your speech for a
Reclaim
minute,
your
Mr.
time.
Secretary. It's my turn to ask questions. I've been listening patiently while you made your presentation. You estimated at one point that the cost of the war in Iran was $29 billion.
It's now been over $200 billion.
Added a caveat that there was a replacement of munitions, for example. Do you have a new estimate about what the war has cost us so far in this, the fifth month of the first year of this war in Iran?
Senator, the estimate we have as of today is $37.5 billion.
None of that. That is so
false. The current
false.
activity, which we've been told about, the exchange of fire back and forth in Iran, an indication that that number is going to go up in the months ahead.
Some of that number captures additional O&M, mill pay, and other that would be anticipated through the fiscal year. So some of that anticipates what costs would be going out in the future as well.
So the new number you've given me is what?
$37.5 billion.
And that represents the cost of the war through what period of time?
Through now for certain aspects of it, but also mill pay, O&M, other anticipated costs through September 30th, Senator.
General Kane, let me ask you a question. I joined a group of senators, some are here, Senator Rounds, Senator Coons, Senator Shaheen, and met with President Zelensky in Turkey during the NATO summit. He was very explicit in terms of what he needed to win. He feels the momentum in Ukraine is moving to his side, and that he is putting a foot forward instead of back. Is that your feeling?
Feeling better?
Sir, I think the pressure that Ukraine is putting on Russia is substantive at this point.
Do you acknowledge his request that we help them with air defenses as a high priority?
Sir, I know he's made the request. Whether or not that moves forward is always a debate at our civilian leadership, but I'm aware of that request.
Are you aware of the fact that we appropriated and the president signed into law $400 billion of supplemental funding for Ukraine, including money for air defenses?
I am, sir.
Are you also aware the administration has informed us that that money will not be available in many aspects until the next president is in office?
Sir, I'm not aware of that. My
that's a
understanding was that capital had been allocated, but I'll have to defer to my civilian leadership.
No, I'm sorry to tell you the pay plan tells us to be prepared to spend that money in fiscal year 29.
Jesus.
The new president, whoever it may be, will make that decision. If you're talking about air defenses and the momentum on the side of Zelensky, what impact will it have if we cannot fund this for 3 years?
Sir, I want to highlight that the incredible work that the Ukraine industrial base is doing as they scale their own capabilities. It ranges from their surface-to-air capabilities to their air-to-air capabilities. I'll note that recently we had the first air-to-air kill where a Ukrainian F-16 shot down a Russian fighter.
Fuck
so
yeah.
I think their ability to scale
Fuck
their
yeah.
layered defense has come along a long way over the past
Dogfights are rare
couple
nowadays,
years.
bro.
With the help and
Dogfights are very
assistance
rare.
of many.
General, thank you for your service to the country, and I'm sorry for our losses. I believe 17 servicemen have given their lives
18
in Iran so far.
At
and
least.
Hundreds have been injured. We should
Thousands
acknowledge
have
that
been
fact.
wounded.
And let me also say, we're at a moment in history where we can win the war in Ukraine. That victory would be critically important for those people who have fought for more than 4 years against the odds and proven they can put Putin back on his heels. But instead of finding the money that they need now for air defenses, we're putting more money into this exchange with Iran, a war of choice which we never should have entered. Thank you, General.
Senator Moran.
Chairwoman Collins, thank you very much. Let me first begin with just a statement to you, Secretary Rollins. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your attention to disaster assistance. Hugely significant and important in many states represented here, but across the country. And it is as challenging circumstances as I've seen farmers in my time and represent.
I've heard enough. Send $1 quadrillion to Israel.
And I appreciate my colleague, Senator Rounds, for making that case today. I appreciate the efforts by Senator Bozeman, the chairman of the Ag Committee, and Senator Rounds, and
oh my God, they have roses on Lindsey Graham's seat. You should have fucking dildos, a gimp suit, and ladybugs.
About your recent visit to the 101st Airborne Division. You saw the MV-75 Cheyenne. You saw it firsthand and heard from soldiers, as I understand it, about the next generation capabilities, how they will transform the way we fight. The Cheyenne has broken through, and it appears to me, in the acquisition bureaucracy to deliver a capability for our war fighting much faster than
if I randomly cut out, it means my building lost power.
As you look
that
across
happens regularly.
acquisition, I mean, we're here talking about appropriations, but the ultimate success we'll have in defending our country is putting that money to work as quickly as possible. So as you look at acquisition, what would you tell me we learned from the Cheyenne? Is it a model how the department can, it intends to field the next generation of capacity going forward? What does the program need from this committee to meet both the schedule and the necessity of its capabilities?
Senator, I appreciate the question. I think it's one of the untold stories of our department is how we've tried to revolutionize the speed and scale of new acquisitions and procurement. Some of it through munitions and ensuring that companies pay for building their own factories and their own assembly lines so that we're saving billions and billions as taxpayers while companies invest. And when you invest in something with your own money, you want to see it succeed ahead of schedule and on time. Also opening the aperture so it's not just the prime contractors that are competing, but new entrants who make high cost and low cost capabilities. I think in particular on the Cheyenne and the Black Hawk and the replacement, the gap that some have identified could exist based on the hesitation on speed and replacement exists because of an austerity mindset, again, that goes back to the Biden administration
Oh my God,
of
everything's
divest
Biden's fault.
to invest.
Everything's
And so you end up
Biden's fault.
divesting in certain systems like the Black Hawk before the next one is online, creating gaps for actual operators. And what we're funding in this supplemental and across this budget is the ability to do both. Make sure the systems we rely on the battlefield right now
Don't forget
are
to
delivered,
donate.
and that newer
Hit that
entrants that
thanks
we're going to
button,
need
donate,
for
tip me directly,
long-range
I love
fight
you.
to deliver to be more survivable in contested environments, which you're talking about. When I had a chance to see it, the soldiers were proud to be in it because they felt like it would give them greater advantage in the future. We need to accelerate the timelines of those and deliver them even more quickly. And when you allow new entrants with all the right incentives, those things happen, and it's happening in that
Will
program.
that take place, I think you may have just said this, but will take place in this circumstance of the Cheyenne?
I believe in this administration, because of the policies of this administration, it is likely to do so. Just like the B-21, just like the F-47, just like so many other of our exquisite munitions that otherwise would have taken years and years to even get into development. We're moving those things left by, in some cases, years, so that we get them in the hands of warfighters who would need them right now and not held up in bureaucracy in this town.
Thank you, sir. Let me turn to you, General Kane. The department is requesting a significant supplemental to address the ongoing operational demands. Our adversaries are watching how we resource this moment. Beijing, Moscow, Tehran are all increasingly coordinating their activities and intelligence. In your judgment, do you believe our adversaries view this moment as an opportunity to exploit U.S. commitments elsewhere? And how does this supplemental ensure our deterrence posture and our commitments to allies remain credible in every theater all at once?
Well, sir, thanks for the question. In my job, it's to look across the globe and look at the range of trade-offs out there. We are the strongest military in the world. Our adversaries
Bullshit.
still fear
That's China.
America's ability to project power at the time
Nobody
and
fears
place of
us.
our
They fear our
choosing.
nukes. That's it.
There is no doubt that they are aligning, as I've said before. And I think this supplemental and whatever funding structure the Congress, working with the executive branch, decides to structure and give us the capital, we'll use that capital to ensure that we sustain that, sir.
You're assuring us that this supplemental and further efforts will reduce the risks to our nation and its national securities issues.
Yes, sir. I view this, and I've spoken to some of you on the phone leading up to this. I view this as future investments to buy down risk, similar to what I said Marshall thought through in those heady days in 1940.
Man, flash flood
where
warning.
the need to invest capital early to deliver scale is an opportunity that I hope we don't miss, Senator.
General, thank you. Thank you, Chairwoman.
Senator Reed.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Secretary Rollins, I just want to reiterate a point that Senator Padilla made. We have $10 billion in this request for Midwestern farmers who are suffering because of the interruption of fuel and fertilizers because of the President Trump's war, unauthorized war. Yet, many states, blue states particularly, have submitted requests. Rhode Island has one. February, we had the worst snowstorm in our recent history.
Get scared again?
And we've been denied by the president. In fact, if you look at the numbers, 20% of blue states seem to get approved and about 80% of red states. I'm making a point, not asking a question.
Right here.
This is unfair. Thank you.
You're okay.
Secretary Hegseth, on February 28th, when you initiated this war without authorization from Congress, the Straits of Hormuz was open and providing vital fuel supplies for the whole world. Now they're closed effectively, impacting globally the price of oil and the economies of the whole world.
Weenie.
But
It's okay.
the Department
Just go
of
to your-
Defense has been planning for potential operations against Iran for many, many years. And one of their obvious assumptions was that the Strait of Hormuz could be closed. Were you unaware of that?
Yeah, he was.
Senator, you are correct. Nobody plans more and looks at more contingencies than our department. And so, of course, undertaking a historic effort like this, of this scope and scale, of course, the Strait of Hormuz was front and center in every single aspect of that. Hence why one of our key objectives to begin with was to sink the entirety of Iran's Navy.
You didn't do that.
Its conventional Navy was sunk. Now,
No,
you
it
can't
wasn't.
get rid of every single fast boat and every single machine gun and a fast boat or every single coastal cruise missile. So we acknowledge that if the state decided to become a terror state shooting at commercial shipping, that would be an ongoing and contested part of the battle, to include their willingness to mine international water.
you
So
were
one side
Excuse me, Mr.
weaponized
Secretary.
the strait,
So
and
you
we've
were
been fighting back
completely
the entire
aware
time.
that the Strait of Hormuz could be closed, and obviously sinking their ships has not affected their ability to effectively close the straits.
We had U.S. boats that surrendered to Iranian ships under the Biden administration. So their Navy was effective in expeditionary
We're
ways
talking
in the
about
past.
a war you started, not a situation in which oil was flowing freely. There was no conflict. We weren't losing personnel as a result of Iranian actions. So your fallback to the Biden administration is just a very, very obvious excuse for what I think is probably, as you described so often, gross negligence. You did not fully inform the president
it's
that
okay.
you would be in a situation where the Strait of Hormuz could be effectively closed, oil prices could surge, and effectively the Iranians could maintain their ability to strike back as they are right now. They just killed some of our servicemen last weekend.
This battlefield and all the dynamics of it, of which the chairman and I are responsible for ensuring the president understands every branch and sequel of what could happen, and we did.
So
the fact that those contingencies all were part of the possibility, and we understood that, is all the more reason why President Trump deserves the kind of praise he should get for undertaking this effort, having the courage to ensure that crazy Islamists can't have a nuclear weapon to hold us at issue. And he's been willing to stay committed to that, regardless of the challenge.
Claim my time.
So he should be praised. He should be praised for starting a war without authority, creating a situation in which the world economy is suffering tremendously. We have to have extra money for our farmers. And we have no outcome, at least no realistic outcome in sight yet. Let me switch to General Kane. General Kane, these airstrikes have not yet deterred and defeated the Iranians. Do you think airstrikes alone will do that?
So I think academically, as you look across the totality of history, air power's got limits, and we always have to be mindful of those.
That's
think
why
where
we're planning a ground
America's
invasion.
area of exclusivity is when we bring the totality of the diplomatic, informational, economic, and pair that with the military, and there's a lot of that work going on,
Well,
sir.
the military, the next step would be escalation by ground combat. Do
Yep.
you anticipate that escalation?
He's not
Sir,
going to rule it out.
I think it'd be unhelpful for me to opine on hypotheticals. What I can tell you is we always develop an unbelievable amount of options and the associated risks. And then my main job is to always ensure that leaders understand those options and the risks.
Now, if you employ ground troops to seize objectives, which I would
Karg
assume
Island.
be the first stage, are you prepared for an extended guerrilla war, which would likely happen in that area?
Sir, with all due respect, I think it'd be unhelpful for me to opine on hypothetical situations on whatever decisions the president may or may not take in the future.
Have you advised the president that a ground combat would be very expensive in the lives of our soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen, and also could probably lead to an extended unconventional war in that area? I don't see the Iranians sort of throwing their hands up saying, welcome to Iran.
Senator, I always advise the president on a range of military options and all of the risks that are contained within that. But
We're
I have to keep
absolutely going to
my
do a ground
military advice
invasion.
to the
Holy
president
shit, dude.
private, sir.
Well, thank you.
I'm going to speculate this now. Hopefully this clip ends up going viral again, or ends up going viral. When we do the ground invasion of Iran, beginning with Karg Island, I'm going to guess that within the first 3 weeks, we lose at least 2,000 soldiers dead. That's what I'm going to bet. The fucking camera went
work
back
on it,
again.
and
I'm going to
for
freak
this
out.
vital support of our farmers and ranchers. What I want to ask you about, though, is actually crop insurance. The number one risk management tool that our farmers have is crop insurance. And the buy-up option is critically important. It covers 67 million acres, 67 million acres of farmland in this country. It was decommissioned, and we need to get it reinstated. Again, you and I both worked very hard on this. Please update me on where we are in terms of getting that buy-up option for crop insurance reinstated.
We are 100% supportive of that and are moving forward to execute that buy-up option. Thank you for your leadership on that, Senator.
Thank you for your support. Also, Assistant Secretary Fortas for his support. It's very impactful, very important, and will make a big difference for our farmers right now. So thank you for that. Secretary Hegseth, are Russia and China helping Iran?
Yes.
And if so, how?
Well, Senator, as the chairman alluded to, there's definitely adversary alignment, attempts to do so, and there are many ways that we deter that, some of which are, and the depth and extent of it ought to remain classified, and it should, but there are ways in which both of those countries are limiting at different levels, enabling some of the things Iran is doing, yes.
General Kane, would you like to add?
Sir, I'd rather not opine on the specifics because that would divulge what we know, and I never want the adversary to know what I know. I just want to know it.
And hopefully we'll get a chance to do that in the skiff.
Yes, sir. Happy to do that in the skiff, sir.
This relates both to the funding, but also, again, to how we achieve our objectives with Iran. Starting with you, Secretary, can we get to the point, and we're seeing continued, I think, improvement and progress on this, but essentially where we can work, and hopefully our allies they need to step in there with us. But where we get to the point where we can operate in the Strait of Hormuz, but keep Iran blockaded.
No.
We're continuing to get better at that, but that's how we they'll never do anything that they say they're going to do. They've proven that over and over. We have to keep the pressure on. But if we can do that effectively, we keep the pressure on and achieve our objectives. Tell us where we are in getting that accomplished.
Senator, I think that's a really good point. That's effectively what we did to create the pressure that led to the circumstances of the MOU, which was we're running a route where ships, and we did it covertly in cooperation with Gulf countries and others who were willing to take some of the risk with our protection and then maintain the blockade. So effectively, oil's coming in and out, oil prices are coming down, but our blockade is staying and the pressure is mounting on Iran. That's something.
None of that is true. Oil prices are going up. No oil is coming out of the Strait of Hormuz. You lying
we won't
fuck.
shoot at shipping. And then the IRGC turned around and decided to start shooting at commercial shipping again, at which point the president, I mean, as he should, cannot tolerate that. And so we respond, as he said 10 times, you shoot at ships, we're going to shoot at you overwhelmingly, which we have been doing now for, I believe it's a 10th consecutive evening. So consequences come with the willingness to shoot at commercial shipping. Our blockade has been reimposed and is effectively impenetrable. We got seized a ship inside the Arabian Gulf as well. So there's a lot of different angles to it, a lot of levers we can pull, and ultimately a lot of the strikes that Admiral Cooper and CENTCOM have been undertaking are taking Iran's ability to see and sense away in the Strait of Hormuz, which has tactical benefits for us.
And that's what this funding is about. This funding is about making sure that we and our allies can operate in the Strait of Hormuz, which helps bring down energy prices for every single American consumer, and that we force Iran to meet our objectives. Isn't that what this package is all about?
This is a peace through strength package. That's what 1.5 trillion has always been about, a generational investment at as the chairman alluded to, a step change moment. We need to be able to do it at speed, at scale, with autonomy, with AI, with exquisite high cost and low cost to be ahead and stay ahead so that you're not just able to do what we need to do in the Strait of Hormuz, but deter adversaries like Russia and China from getting involved in future contingencies.
And just General Kane for any follow-up that you would like on that issue.
Sir, I wouldn't have anything to add.
Okay. Again, thank you, and thank you to all of our men and women in uniform. We appreciate them so much.
What a
Senator Shaheen.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Secretary Hegseth, since you last testified before this committee, we finally received the spend plan for the $400 million FY26 appropriation for Ukraine security assistance. This funding was passed back in January, and now there are only 3 months left in this fiscal year. And while I appreciate that we now see what most of the funding is intended for, I just heard from the CEO of one of the manufacturers of the defense articles that are contained in the spend plan that they not only haven't received funding, but they haven't even seen a contract. So when are we going to see a contract for those defense articles that are contained in the spend plan for Iraq?
Iraq?
I'm sorry, for Ukraine.
Senator, I'll have to get back to you on the specifics of the timeline of that. I'll
Deja
talk to our policy
vu.
shop as well as the UCOM commander to determine where that's at.
Well, you've told this committee that you've barely spent half of the $150 billion in reconciliation funding. And if you still have $75 billion available, why are you asking the American people to absorb the cost of a war they don't support instead of asking for transfer authority for unspent reconciliation funding, especially if you can't even get $400 million in Ukraine funding out the door?
As I mentioned earlier, Senator, that money from the One Big Beautiful Bill is otherwise allocated to the rebuilding of our military with priorities of the president like Golden Dome for America and hypersonics and other munitions investments that we made up front as we tried to adjust the Biden budget into an America First budget. And so reallocating that away from those priorities is robbing Peter to pay Paul. Those are allocated to rebuild.
But my point is,
and ultimately we're committed
if you can't
to
spend
this
it
year's
on
agenda.
a timeline that makes sense, why do you need to come back and ask for more money? Wouldn't it be better to spend money that you already have? And one of the things I noted was, or at least I think that this supplemental doesn't include funding to repair damage to our bases or to our military infrastructure in the region. And I have not heard that we've gotten the full extent of any of those damage estimates. So should we expect another request to address that military construction costs? And at what point do you stop asking Americans to foot the bill for a war they don't support on top of an inflated budget request and billions in reconciliation funds that you still haven't spent?
Well, Senator, I obviously don't agree with your characterization of that. But
I
ultimately,
appreciate that, but you didn't ask, but I want you to answer my question. I know you don't agree with my characterization. I don't agree with yours either.
Well, one of the reasons I take issue with that characterization is something that Senator Durbin said when he talked about Ukraine.
Reclaim my time.
He talked about winning. And I appreciate as much as anybody winning a war. But I sit in front of a committee that wants to talk about winning a war that's been going on for 4 years and talks about strategic defeat of a conflict that's been going on for 4 months to prevent Iran from getting a nuclear bomb. I would hope for some perspective in this town of the historic nature of what President Trump is undertaking. Do you want radical Islamists to have a nuclear bomb
I don't
that
want
can
to hear
stare
your
down the
speech
world?
because I have limited time.
I don't understand.
If you can't answer my question, then I will move on to my next question. Secretary Rollins, the timber industry has also been hard hit, as you know, by trade wars, by drought, by wildfires, by other natural disasters that are increasingly common. In New Hampshire, which is the second most heavily forested state in the nation, one of the things that we really need, as you know, because we've had this conversation, is a research program and Forest Service staffing on the ground in a variety of ways, but particularly at Bartlett Experimental Forest. These small investments in research and staffing and sound management help make the forest economies healthier and more competitive. I very much appreciate your having staff visit Bartlett last week with my staff and with staff from the governor's office. But can you commit to restoring staffing at Bartlett and to keeping the facilities there open now that you've seen the critical nature of that research?
Why don't I follow up with you? I have not gotten a report from their visit, so I would like to do that first. But obviously, you and I have been in a continuing conversation about that. The good news, there's no doubt our timber industry is in distress and has been for a long time. The fact that we import 90% or something from other countries of our lumber needs is crazy. We're changing that. But the good news, we had more board feet sold last year than any time in 30 years. This year, we're going to exceed that target again. So we're making the right moves on this, but there's no doubt that research is important to that, as we've discussed. And I'll follow up with our team, and then we'll reconnect.
Thank you. I appreciate that. As you pointed out, research is critical to ensuring that the timber economy continues to be successful. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Senator Kennedy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank
Oh,
you
this
all
guy's
for
so
being
funny.
here
I hate
today.
him, but he's funny.
General, in the war between Russia and Ukraine, who do we want to win?
Sir, I want Ukraine to win.
Is Russia America's friend?
I'm sorry, sir, I couldn't quite hear your
Is
question.
Russia America's friend?
I think that depends on your definition of friend. I think it's a complicated relationship. But no, I don't think they're our friends.
Thank you. If we could cut off Russia's cash flow, which depends substantially on its sale of oil, would that help Ukraine win?
Yeah.
So I think militarily, anytime you can restrict resources and cash flows against an adversary,
General, I
that's
have
a good
so
thing.
much respect for you.
Yes, sir.
But I have so little time.
Yes, sir. I'll try to be
Just
briefer.
Give me succinct answers.
Yes, sir. It would assist a.
Would help, wouldn't
yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. If we could stop people, entities, and countries from buying Russia's oil, that would help cut off its cash flow, wouldn't it?
Yes, sir.
We have a bill to do that, as I'm sure you're aware. We have the votes today to pass it overwhelmingly. I also have enormous respect and admiration for our majority leader, Senator Thune. But I hope everybody on this panel will today contact Senator Thune and ask him to bring that bill to the floor. We should vote on it at a minimum of next week. Some of my colleagues, General, want America to just stop in Iran.
Yes.
In the blockade, bring all of our warriors home. What would be the consequences of that, in your estimation?
Sir, I think termination criteria is always a political decision. However, I assess that Iran will continue to be a challenge moving forward. So we have to be thoughtful
Will
about
they
that.
put tolls on the strait?
I don't know, sir. That's a decision that's a
And that's
hypothetical.
their
and will
fucking
depend
right.
on what
It's
happens
not
in the future.
hypothetical. We've got a blockade to stop them.
We do, sir. That's putting
I want you
economic
to look me in
pressure
the
on
eye.
Iran.
I'm not asking you for, I'm not trying to get you in trouble. I know your advice to the president is private, but this is serious as 4 heart attacks and a stroke. Now, what happens if we come home and end the blockade to the world?
Sir, Iran has the potential to continue to be a threat, and we will need to prepare military
Will they
options
toll
to do
the
that.
strait?
Sir, that's a hypothetical question, and I don't know the answer to that.
Oh, it's not hypothetical. We come home. It's not going to be hypothetical. You know that, General. And I
Literally,
do too.
this cocksucker is arguing for forever war right
appreciate
now,
your discretion.
saying we can't ever leave.
But we're down to it. We need some hard answers and some straight talk. What'll happen, Pete?
Senator, I would agree with the chairman, but the likely outcome is they would try to impose their will on the waterways in ways that the world would not like. Call it a toll, call it a fee, call it an exchange, call it control. They would do something that they would try to hold it at issue. Yes, sir.
Would they try to commence development again of a nuclear warhead?
I hope they do.
Part of the reason President Trump had to have the courage to do what he did after Midnight Hammer is that they didn't give up their ambitions, even though their nuclear sites had been obliterated. So this is a
Their nuclear sites were
hell-bent
not
on nuclear
obliterated.
ambitions, and
Guys,
President
we
Trump's
need
been willing to
straight
go after them.
answers. We need straight answers. Do we have the ability to destroy whatever is underneath Pickaxe Mountain.
Nope. Nope.
Senator, a lot of our capabilities are classified, but if anybody in the world can reach anything on God's green earth, it's the United States military, the most powerful military in the world. It's all about options and trade-offs.
I'm going to take a little extra time because others got it, Madam Chair. I won't abuse it. Secretary, are shrimpers farmers?
Absolutely, yes. There are farmers of the sea.
Are oyster harvesters farmers?
Yes. In this USDA,
They
yes.
having to compete with other countries who grow oysters and shrimp in a ditch and shoot them full of antibiotics?
100% yes.
And if you eat too much of that foreign shrimp and oysters, you'll grow an extra ear, won't you?
I'm not sure about that, but I know it is not good. And I also know
Why
we import
aren't we
90% of our
inspecting
shrimp.
the shrimp and the oysters from abroad?
Well, it goes much larger than that. Why are we importing so much from abroad, which goes to the president's trade agenda?
I'm in big trouble.
Yes, you are.
Guys, look, we need straight answers now. We're down to it.
Senator
What the
Murphy.
fuck?
Thank you, Madam Chair and Secretary Rollins. I appreciate your partnership on addressing several issues in Oregon, and I sent you information about a couple others, and you responded. Appreciate it. We'll follow up on the research.
Are
service. We'll
oysters
follow up on the
farmers?
concern about in-kind contributions serving as a match, but I particularly need your help on the fire funding. And I know you've indicated how important that is. Where we stand now is that.
All right, I'm done. I ain't gonna watch the rest of this gang. We've watched plenty, and I'm sure Asen or Aaron Rupar will have the juice clipped out later tonight or early tomorrow morning. Why does it do that? Why does it do that? Why does it do that? Oh, you telling me a shrimp fried this rice, Senator? Secretary, did a shrimp fry this rice? You're telling me a shrimp fried this rice? Get the fuck out of here. All right. I'm out of here, gang. Thank you very much for tuning into the Valenti Videos broadcast. I love you all very much. I only got... You fuckers only donated $30 today. Y'all are some broke-ass bitches. Y'all motherfuckers, man. Bunch of bastards. Anyway, I'm out of here. Thank you very much. Later, guys. Have a good one. Be good.